want to thank you. Just want to thank you forever, forever, and ever, and ever, and ever, and ever, for all that you've done, done for me. Blessings and glory, and honor, they all belong to you.
Thank you, Jesus, for blessing me.
Just want to praise, just want to praise you forever,
Forever and ever and ever, for all you've done for me. Blessings and glory and honor, they all belong to you. Thank you, Jesus, for blessing me.
I just want to thank you. I just want to thank you forever,
Forever
and ever,
and ever
and ever.
and ever, for all you've done for me.
Blessings and glory,
Blessings and glory and honor,
they all belong.
they all belong to you.
Thank you, Jesus.
Thank you, Jesus, for blessing me.
Just want to praise you
Forever and ever
and ever.
and ever, for all you've
Done for me. Blessings, blessings and glory and honor,
and honor,
they all.
they all belong to you.
Blessings and glory, blessings and glory and honor.
And honor, they all belong to you.
One more time, blessings, blessings and glory.
And honor, they all belong to you.
Blessings and glory, blessings and glory.
And honor, they all belong to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jesus, for blessing me.
Follow very closely. Very back of your program on the inside back page, you'll find the scripture and the message outline we're going to follow very closely on this morning. Our scripture comes from the Gospel of John, John chapter 1, beginning at the 47th verse. And it reads, when Jesus saw Nathanael approaching, he said to him, here is a true Israelite in whom there is nothing false. How do you know me? Nathanael asked. Jesus answered, I saw you while you were still under the fig tree before Philip called you. Then Nathanael declared, Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel. Jesus said, you believe because I told you I saw you under the fig tree? You shall see greater things than that. He then added, I tell you the truth. You shall see heaven open and the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man. So I want to speak to you as we've been sharing over the last few weeks from this subject, becoming a disciple. And we've talked to you about what it means to become a disciple. And we've looked at these verses in the Gospel of John. And this is our fourth time now looking at John chapter 1. And in that first chapter, we see where different men have become disciples. And there were some aspects of their lives that would help you and I as followers of Jesus Christ. A disciple simply is one that had decided they would follow Christ. And as you and I have made that decision that we would follow him, we would love him, we would want to imitate him, we want him to be a part of our lives, then there are some things that will go on in your life as a disciple that also happened in the life of those first disciples. You will recall that the first disciple that Jesus had was Andrew. And the scripture says that Andrew and another disciple, which was believed to have been John, the writer of this gospel, they came and they became disciples of Jesus Christ. Well, Andrew, after he became a disciple, you read again in chapter 1, John, that Andrew got his brother, Simon Peter. And Simon Peter becomes a disciple. And then they tell one of their neighbors about him, and Jesus finds Philip, who was a neighbor of Andrew and Peter. And so Philip becomes a disciple. And once Philip becomes a disciple, he goes and gets Nathanael. This is the fourth one. Now we're seeing how Philip goes. The Bible says he finds Nathanael, and he tells Nathanael about Jesus. And Nathanael asked that question we talked about last week, can anything good come out of Nazareth? Nazareth was not mentioned in the Old Testament. It was not considered an important city, and it was not like Bethlehem. It was not like Jerusalem. It did not have a famous name. And so he said, can anything worthwhile, anything significant come from there? And Philip answers and says, come and see. That was Philip's answer. We talked about that last week. Now we're going to pick it up where Philip has told him, Nathanael, to come and see. And so we see Nathanael actually coming to see. Verse 47 says, when Jesus saw Nathanael approaching, so Nathanael was coming to Jesus to see what it was Philip was talking about. He's coming to see. Jesus sees him approaching, and he's making his way. He's walking towards Jesus. And as he's walking towards Jesus, Jesus then says these words, here is a true Israelite. I want you to write that in your outline because this is a very important part. The first thing I want you to write is that he is true. He's true. A true Israelite. This is what an Israelite should be. He is a true Israelite. Now that's significant because Jesus now is making a reference to Israel, and Israel was the third of the patriarchal fathers. You remember there was Abraham, there was Isaac, and then there was Jacob. And Jacob's name was changed to Israel. His name was changed because he had been such a deceiver, and he was so much full of deceit, so much full of the Old Testament, King James Version calls it guile. That means trickery, con artist, always being deceptive. He was so full of deceit that his name, actual name, Jacob, means to trick. He was always trying to trick somebody. We would call him a con artist today, always trying to beat somebody out of something. And because of that, that being his very name, and that was his very nature, and as we know how he tricked his brother, we know how he just lived this life of trickery. And so when Jesus, God encounters him through the Spirit of Christ, God encounters him at Bethel. And at Bethel, he wrestles with the angel. And his name is changed, and his nature is changed. He becomes a new man. He becomes a different person. And then the scripture says, I think it's at 32nd chapter of Genesis, it says, you'll no longer be called Jacob. You'll no longer be a trickster. You'll no longer be a deceiver. You will no longer be full of deceit. Your name, your new name shall be Israel. And Israel stands for the prince. It is one who has access to the Almighty. You have access to the Almighty as a prince of God. This prince of God now is what his name is. This is his new name, and it is to be a moniker of his new nature. What I want you to see, my brothers and sisters, is a true Israelite is a prince of God, is a princess of God, somebody who has access to the Almighty. That's what a prince does. If nobody else can see the king, the prince can see the king, because he's part of the family, and he gets total access to his father. And so Israel was supposed to have total access to God the Father. And so God now says, here God is in the person of Jesus Christ, and he says, here is a true Israelite. Now, Jesus then explains more what that means. He says, a true Israelite in whom, verse 47, in whom there is nothing false. That becomes important, because you and I now, we're supposed to be the prince. We're supposed to be the true believers. We're supposed to be the ones that are following Christ. And so he says, if you're going to be true, then you can't have anything false in you. True and false are not to be together. True and false are different. They're not supposed to be. They're not supposed to be living in the same house. They're not supposed to be in the same body. In other words, they're not supposed to be you and me. We're not supposed to be true and false at the same time. So Jesus says, this man is true. Now, Jesus does not say he's perfect. He does not say that he's sinless. He does not say that he doesn't have any faults, but he does say he does not have anything false in him. He's doing the very best he can every day of his life. And that's what God wants from you and I. He's not asking us to be perfect. He's not asking us to be sinless. He just said, I want you to do the very best you can every day. And if you will be the very best you can every day, then God will help you to get to where he will eventually make you perfect. He is the perfecter of our faith. He is the one that's able to make us righteous before a holy God. Our God will eventually, if we will walk with him long enough, he will get sin out of each one of our lives. That's what he does. You heard of Ghostbusters. Well, he's a sin buster. Yeah, he'll get that out of our lives. But we got to be willing to walk with him. We got to be willing to obey him. We got to be willing to listen to his command. And so here Jesus sees this man, this Nathanael, and he says, this man is true. Now let me give you some help on how you can become true. The way to become true is that you got to remove everything that's false in your life. You got to get rid of that which is false. If I could say it bluntly, I would say, you got to stop lying. And sometimes we lie to ourselves. You know, you lie to yourself when you say, I'm all right. No, you're not all right. There's a lot wrong with you. And we got a Christ who wants to make us all right. But we got to get with him first. And then he does the hard work of making us right. But you by yourself, me by myself, no, I'm not all right. That's why I need a Christ. Is my marriage all right? No, my marriage is not all right. We need a Christ. And is America all right? No, America's not all right. We need the Christ. We can't be all right until we start getting right with God. Allowing God to lead us and guide us and show us how to get right. Well, that's what this Israelite does. That's what Nathanael does. Nathanael, he starts to deal with everything that's false in his life. And as you start to get rid of that which is false, then you, my brother and sister, you become true. Jesus sees him and says, this man, he's true. There's nothing false in him. He's dealing with everything that's false that comes up. He's dealing with it. That makes him true. That's what makes us true. When we start dealing with anything, when you start thinking that so-and-so is not they're not as good as you, they're not as this, they're not as cultured as you, they're not as this as you, and you know what you're doing? You're being false. The Bible calls it hypocrite. A hypocrite is just one that's false. You're false because you're starting to think more highly of yourself than you ought to think. The Lord Jesus tells us in the Old Testament, he says that you and I, our sins are like crimson. They are bright red. And he was talking to the most holy and most righteous among us. The most holy and the most righteous among us. Our sin is bright red. We are totally unworthy of our God. And even being totally unworthy, he loves us anyway. He's a wonderful God. And this man, Nathaniel, he's living a true life. And Jesus said there's nothing false in him. This man is true. Well, when Jesus says that about Nathaniel, I remember Jesus, he knows Nathaniel, and Jesus says this about him. Then Nathaniel asked this question in verse 48, how do you know me? How do you know me? Where have you encountered me? What do you know about me? And my brothers and sisters, that needs to be a question that every one of us needs to ask. Lord, how do you know me? You need to, that's a personal question that you need to ask your God. How does he know you? And I would add to that, what is your standing with him? Where do you stand with him? How do you know me? That's a good question to ask, and let's look at how Jesus answers it. Jesus says to him in verse 48, he asked, how do you know me? Jesus answered, said, I saw you while you were still under the fig tree before Philip called you. Before you heard Philip calling, I saw you under the fig tree. Now, this is significant because in the Israel's history, when they would study the scripture and they would ponder, remember Psalm number 1 says, blessed is the man, blessed is the woman that meditates on the Lord day and night. And so the true Israelites, they would spend some time pondering. They would spend some time meditating. Something like what you and I ought to do. You ought to have some quiet time, some downtime, where you just spend some time meditating, spend some time being quiet. If you're always in the rush, always got to be somewhere, always got to be doing something, then you don't have time to spend with the one that made you. You don't really have time to get to know yourself. Slow it down some. Pump the brakes. Get to where you can be quiet sometime. And here, this was what Nathaniel was doing. He was being quiet in his private time under this fig tree. That's where Israel would study the scriptures. That's where holy men and holy women would spend some time with God. They would find a shady place under the fig tree, and they would study the scriptures, and they would meditate, and they would pray. And so most of the scholars, Matthew Henry and other scholars, say that this man, Nathaniel, he was doing some meditating and praying, and doing some introspection and retrospect, and he's meditating, and he's there under the fig tree. He's having a private time. Now listen to what Jesus said. Jesus said, I saw you in your private time. Wait a minute now. That's supposed to have been private. And Jesus said, I want you to know, I know what goes on in your private life. I know your private thoughts. I know your fantasies. I know what you haven't told to anybody else. I saw you in your private time. And my brothers and sisters, that's an awful scary proposition to have a God who sees you in your private time. It's closed off to everybody. My wife and I have a bathroom that we share. She got one of her own, I got my own, and then we share one. And in the one that we share, in our room we share, I got the habit of locking the door. Now, it's one of those Jack and Jill bathrooms, so you can go in one side, but if I lock it on this side and I go out the other side, she don't know I done went out the other side, so she can't get in. It's just locked. Can't get in. And so she says to me, nobody at the house would be in her. She says, well, do you still have to lock the door? Nobody here. Just me and you. You don't have to lock the door. I'm just in a habit. I said, well, you know, we had 3 sons, and I had to keep them locked out. Just got in the habit of always locking the door. So I just automatically, habitually, just lock the door. Well, in doing that, I'm also habitually thinking, now I've got some private time. Well, the Lord is saying to you, you thought you had private time, but I'm there even in your private time. We have this God who knows all of our private thoughts. He knows all of our private feelings. He knows all of our everything private about us. Our God already knows all about that. And then God says, and in spite of knowing all your private stuff, I still love you. Now, this is important because when Nathaniel hears, he saw me under my fig tree, he saw me in my private time. And this is for you to write it in. You might want to write, he saw me while I was still doing private stuff. Whatever that private stuff is, he saw me while I'm doing my private stuff, and he still loves me. Listen to what Nathaniel says after he hears this. When Jesus told him that, and he says, I know you even before Philip called you, I know you in your private time. And then Nathaniel responds in verse 49. He says, you are the Son of God. The only one that can know what's going on in my private head and in my private feelings and my private sexuality and all that is private about me, the only one that can know that is God. Nathaniel, right then and there, if you know all that's going on in me privately and you still love me, you got to be God. Only God can love me in my private time and know my private thoughts. Well, I ain't shared with nobody. I haven't shared it with anybody. I've told it to no one. And yet this one, he knows all about me and still loves me. That's why you say hallelujah. I got a God that knows all my private thoughts. I told him at 7:30, if some people could know my private thoughts, in fact, if all of you knew, you'd walk out here right now. Let me get away from this man. But we got a God that said, if I know all your private thoughts and I love you anyway. I know the best thoughts you've ever had, and I know the worst thoughts you ever had, and I love you anyway. And so when Nathaniel hears that, Nathaniel says, this is the Son of God. Only God can love like that. Only God can love us at our worst and still be in love with us. This is the Son of God. And then he tells him, and you also are the King of Israel. And he's speaking of Israel as those who believe in God and those that want to be followers of God and those of us that are part of being the prince and princesses of God. You are our king. We have access to God, and we are the prince of God. We are the princesses of God. But he says, but you are our king. You're the one that leads us. Because you love us in spite of our worst selves. You love us even in our private selves when we didn't think nobody else could see or nobody else would know, and you see, and you love us anyway. If my private thoughts were able to kill, there'd be a lot of dead folks right now. And if some folks' private thoughts were able to kill me, I wouldn't be standing here right now. But we got this God that in spite of our private thoughts, he loves us. And our God, because he loves us, when Nathaniel finally says this, and this is important, when Nathaniel declares, third part of the outline, you are the Son of God. You are also the King of Israel. And what I want you to be able to do as a disciple, at some point in your life, you need to declare he is the Son of God, Jesus is the Son of God, and you need to declare that he is your King. If he's your king, he has the right to ask you to do anything, and you don't say, no, that's too much. You say yes. If it's your king, you don't say no to the king. That's not appropriate. That's not right. You can be beheaded and killed for saying no to the king. When the king asks you to do something, you say yes. This is what Nathaniel was saying. Nathaniel was saying, whatever you ask of me, you're my king. You just said I was a true Israelite. Well, I want you to know you're the king of this Israelite. And since you're my king, whatever you ask of me, I'm going to do it. If I can't do it, I'm going to die trying to do it because my king asked this of me. Well, our king, he just asked us something very plain, very simple. It's still hard for us to do, but our king just asked us to love one another. Treat one another with respect. Show reverence and respect and love for one another. That's what the king asked. How did Aretha Franklin say it? Love is spelled R-E-S-P-E-C-T. Respect one another. That's what genuine love does. Genuine love has respect. The king asked us to love one another. But when the king says this, when Nathaniel acknowledges Jesus Christ as king, this is what happens. I'm going to be finished. The scripture says he acknowledges him as king, and in verse 50, after Nathaniel had acknowledged and declared Jesus as the Son of God and as the King of Israel, I want you to hear what happens. Jesus says to him, verse 50, you believe because I told you I saw you under the fig tree. You believe because I told you I know what's going on in your private thoughts. I know about your private life. I know what your wife don't know. I know what your family doesn't know. I know what goes on inside your head. I know the thoughts that flow through there day and night. I know the occasional thoughts. I told them this morning at 7:30 that sometimes I actually apologize to God because some crazy thoughts go through my head. I said, Lord, where'd that thought come from? And I asked God to cast it away from me and don't let it come back again. And thank God, most of them haven't come back. Some of them crept back again. But I'm glad I got a God that loves me in spite of my crazy thoughts, in spite of my sin nature, in spite of what's wrong with me. I got a God that loves me. And so this is how Jesus responds to Philip. Philip said to Nathaniel. Nathaniel says, you know me even in my private world, and you love me. And that's why I believed. And then Jesus tells him in verse 50, you believe because I knew you in your private world, and I know now that you've changed. But Jesus didn't ask this. He said, but greater things than that. I got something greater than your private world. You thought that was something. You haven't seen anything yet. Grandma would say, you ain't seen nothing yet. It's going to get better for you. You thought that was good. I got something better than that coming for you. And my brothers and sisters, that's what the Lord says to us. Whatever it was that brought you to Christ, whatever sin he forgave or whatever thing he did to inspire you and you came to Christ, God is saying to you now, that's why you came, but I got something greater than that. That's what made you confess. That's what made you decide you're going to follow me. And that's all right. That's good. That's a good start. But I got something better than that. Jesus tells him in verse 50, I got greater things than that. Now remember, this all is happening in chapter 1. That's just John's first chapter. When we get to chapter 2, and remember also in chapter 1, Jesus didn't do any miracles in chapter 1. It's not the chapter 2 that we see his first miracle, and Nathaniel is there. The Bible says that Jesus was invited to a wedding, and they ran out of wine. Peter was there, Andrew was there, John was there, and Nathaniel and Philip were there. And they run out of wine. They tell Jesus about it. Jesus says to his mother who told him, woman, this is not my time yet. And that's their problem. That's not my problem. I wasn't sent here for that purpose. And his mother tells the servant, just do whatever he tells you. He's going to tell you something. I'm still mama. He's going to say something. He's going to say something. He's going to do something. And whatever he says, do it. And so Jesus says to them, out of respect for my mother, giving due respect to mama, since mama's going to insist, I would have said, well, the party's over. Everybody can go home now. Y'all done drunk up everything we had. So Sandra and I had to do that on chili and chocolate. Look, everything gone now. But they said, she said, do whatever Jesus tells you. So Jesus says, all right, we got these gallons of water pots here, 6 of them, and they all hold 30-something gallons each, 30 to 40 gallons each. Fill them up with water. And when they fill them up with water, he tells them to go take it to the chief waiter, and he tasted it. He said, this is the best wine I've ever tasted. Nathanael hears that Jesus had just turned that water into wine. And he remembers now, chapter 1, he remembers Jesus already promised me, I'm going to see greater things. And now he's starting to realize not only does this God have something to do with what's going on in me privately and spiritually and psychologically and emotionally, but now this God has something to do with what's going on the outside. He can take my situation that's looking bad, he can turn it into something good. He can take when I don't have enough on the table, he can make what I do have go further than I thought it would go, because he's able to do something out of nothing. I'm seeing a miracle right now. He took this water, and that water wasn't good for anything. It's free. It didn't even cost anything. And he made wine out of it. And he didn't just make old wine. He made the best wine you could have out of it. He didn't make any old wine. He made the best wine. And our God is saying, he'll take what we have. If all you got is water, then he'll take your water and he'll make something valuable out of what you have. All you got to do is be willing to walk with him. You don't have to have anything. You don't have to have much. Just be willing to use what you do have. And God will do some miraculous things with what you have. He's not going to ask you to do a miracle. He's just going to ask you to be available to him, and he'll do the miracle. All the Lord ever did, everybody he did a miracle with, all they had to do was be available. You remember, when you read through John, you start finding out that Nathanael did see him do greater things. Not only did Nathanael see him turn water into wine, remember they were in a boat, and there was a storm, and Jesus wasn't in the boat. Jesus was outside the boat, but Jesus started walking on the water, coming toward the boat, and then Peter says, Lord, if it really is you, Nathanael's in that boat also. And he said, if it really is you, let me walk on the waters. And Jesus says, Peter, you want to walk on the water? Keep your eye on me and come. If you want to do the miraculous, keep your eye on the Lord and then go on and take the first step, and God will do the rest. He'll do miracles. But you got to be willing to do your part. Let me close with this. I got a friend, been my friend for many years now, told me he needs a heart valve. A friend in Kentucky. He said, I need to get a heart valve. He told me that maybe 2 years ago now. I said, well, get it. He says, I'm afraid. I says to him, man, you're going to be afraid in the cemetery, because the people who could help you can't help you from your house. I said, you're a Marine. He served in the Marine Corps. I said, you served in the Marine Corps. You done did some wonderful things, and now you're telling me you're afraid to get the help you know you need? I said, even God won't help you if you're full of fear. Every time God bless somebody, he says to them, fear not. If you're going to be full of fear, you're not going to ever reach your blessing. The way to reach your blessing is to say, I'm not going to be afraid anymore. You still may, you know what courage is? Courage is going on in spite of your fear. When you read Joshua chapter 1, God never tells Joshua, well, he did tell him not to be afraid, but he said, but in spite of being afraid, make sure you are courageous. Because if you're courageous, you'll go on in spite of your fear. Doesn't matter what you're afraid of, I'm going to be courageous, meaning I'm going to go on in spite of what I'm afraid of. I'm going to do it anyway because I know I got a God who promised he'd never leave me nor forsake me. And so I'm going to take a chance. I'm going to take a risk. I'm going to do what I know I need to do because I'm not going to operate in fear. I'm going to operate in faith. And you cannot have fear and faith at the same time. Fear will squash your faith, or your faith will squash your fear. And the Lord said, let your faith put your fear to the test. Let your faith run your fear out of the house. It takes you and I operating in faith, which is the direct opposite of fear. If you operate in faith, then the Bible says there's nothing that's impossible to you. If you operate in fear, you will never be able to do anything great. Our God challenges us to operate in faith. And he'll take us to some great heights, greater things than we ever could have imagined. At that time, Nathaniel couldn't have imagined him having two pieces of fish and slices of bread and being able to feed 5,000 with that. But he saw it happen because Jesus told him, you're going to see greater things than this. He saw a Samaritan woman come to the well, come to Jacob's well, and he says to Jacob, the woman at Jacob's well, I know all about you, and the husband you got now, he's really not yours. And the woman said, you must be the Son of God. You told me everything there is about me. And she went into town and brought back the whole town. She said to the whole town, come and see a man who told me everything about myself. I done slept with this one and that one. All y'all come on. Y'all need him. He's going to tell you everything about yourself. We got a God who says, even in spite of knowing everything about us, he loves us anyway. He died on the cross for you and for me. He rose on the third day declaring all powers in his hand, and he gives us access to that power because he said, I'm going to give you that power of God because you're a prince and the princess of God. I'm going to give you that power. All you got to do is follow me. When we follow him, he gives us access to great power. I'm going to stop right there. Will you stand with me? Maybe somebody here today is ready to follow our Christ. Maybe somebody wants